Imagine, if you can, stepping into what some have called a self-imposed hell. It's a place where time just dissolves. Days ran into each other in an agonizing blur.
Yeah.
The world outside, it becomes terrifying. You're actually afraid of the phone, the doorbell, and the darkness.
It's hard to picture unless you've been close to it.
Right. It's this deep, disorienting state where someone might literally find themselves wailing because I couldn't make sense of anything anymore, their own life.
It's more than just a rough patch, isn't it? It's this sheer, overwhelming chaos that really defines the grip of alcoholism for so many people.
Exactly. A total internal and external dissolution.
Yeah, beyond just the physical drinking, it's this relentless spiral. Internal turmoil, promises broken over and over, and this bewildering loss of control.
The self they knew just
It
vanished.
disintegrates. Yeah.
And today, that's what we're doing. We're taking a deep dive into exactly that profound unmanageability. And, crucially, into the journey out of it, the journey to recovery.
We're really peeling back the layers, trying to understand what it was truly like in those depths.
And we're drawing our insights straight from the source, from the foundational texts of Alcoholics Anonymous. We've got Alcoholics Anonymous Comes of Age, the big book itself, Alcoholics Anonymous, 4th edition.
Also, Daily Reflections, Dr. Bob and the Good Old Timers, and Experience, Strength, and Hope. Great stuff.
These aren't just like dry historical documents, are they?
Oh, not at all. They're raw, unfiltered testimonials. They give this incredibly honest look at the absolute depths of despair.
And
then the surprising simplicity, really, of the principles that guided so many people out of that bewildering chaos toward lasting sobriety and maybe, surprisingly, real inner peace.
So our mission today is to take you on that journey with us. We'll navigate through that multi-layered chaos of active alcoholism, and then we'll try to uncover these often counterintuitive but clearly effective principles that offered a way out, a path from total bewilderment to genuine serenity.
Okay, so where do we start?
Let's start right at the heart of it, the grip of chaos. Before AA.
Right, because when we talk about alcoholism, it's easy to just focus on the external stuff, the visible consequences.
The job losses, the family problems.
Exactly. But these sources reveal this truly horrifying internal world, this relentless physical and mental decline that's almost impossible to really grasp unless you've been through it.
Let's talk about the physical side first, the torment.
It was ceaseless for many. We hear about the morning jitters so bad that someone might need, get this, a tumbler full of gin followed by half a dozen bottles of beer just to steady their hands enough to eat breakfast.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just to function at the most basic level. It's a horrific cycle, isn't it? The cure is the poison.
Precisely. And the physical damage didn't stop there. Some accounts describe people becoming almost blind, crippled, and near death from things like severe ulcers, dangerously high blood pressure.
Scotty breakdown.
Complete breakdown. But what's truly baffling, and the texts really hit on this, is that even after the agony of a hangover, maybe just a small one, that overwhelming desire for just one or two drinks would kick in and boom, they'd end up dead drunk all over again.
What was it about that first drink? It seems central.
That's the core mystery, isn't it? The baffling compulsion. So many would start the day with the absolute best intentions, truly believing they could control it this time.
Just one today.
Right, only to find, as the saying goes, one drink is too many, but 20 are not enough. It just took over.
And it wasn't just physical, you said, the mental and emotional chaos, an internal labyrinth.
Absolutely. People lived in a present that was described as simply unbearable. No sense of a future, just trapped in constant rationalizing as usual.
Always an excuse.
Yeah.
Always a reason why this time it's okay or why it wasn't their fault.
Masters of self-deception, always finding a way to convince themselves, okay, this time will be different, I can beat the game.
Even when deep down, maybe they suspected they were down for the count, as one source puts it.
Exactly. It's that stubborn insistence on managing something that's fundamentally unmanageable. That's what really keeps people trapped in that cycle of chaos,
How bad could that mental state
Oh, it could escalate pretty severely into what the texts frankly call alcoholic insanity.
Really? Like actual psychosis.
Some reported auditory or visual hallucinations, hearing voices, seeing things that weren't there. It led to terrifying experiences, hysterical hospitalizations.
I can only imagine.
One person talks about waking up in the booby hatch, just a bare room, bars on the window, treated, as they put it, like I was nuts.
Wow. So this wasn't just like feeling bad from drinking too much. This was profound mental suffering.
A self-induced suffering, yeah. A desperate internal battle where your own mind basically turns against you.
And this internal chaos, it didn't stay internal, did it? It spilled out, affecting everyone around them, families, work.
Oh, completely. It rippled outwards, often devastating families. The early stories talk about wives becoming increasingly concerned, putting it mildly.
Understatement, yeah.
Entire families just falling apart, mothers crying constantly, nonstop griping and cussing at home. Any sense of peace or security was just gone.
That sounds incredibly stressful for everyone involved.
Hugely. It wasn't uncommon for the person drinking to move out just so they could drink without interference, leaving their wives perhaps to go on welfare, kids barely seeing their parents sober.
Just heartbreaking.
And the sources are really clear here. A primary cause of all this misery, they say, were these defective relations with other human beings.
Oh, so.
It was fueled by this inner mess of resentments, jealousy, envy, self-pity, or hurt pride. These weren't just like side effects of the drinking. They were seen as fundamental issues, character defects that the alcohol maybe numbed for a bit or maybe inflamed.
Creating this web of destruction in their relationships.
Exactly. And professionally, same story. Equally destructive chaos. Many people had started out really successful, talented.
Yeah, you hear those stories.
But careers just crumbled. Fired from the railroad, losing a whole business. Why? Because alcohol made them not very dependable. Simple as that sometimes.
Despite their best intentions, the disease was just too unpredictable.
Right. And even after managing to get sober for a while, there was this insidious pattern the sources describe.
What was that?
Well, they'd sober up, feel better, and then they'd figure out the reason why it happened last time. But they'd usually blame something external, right? Not the internal compulsion.
Ah, okay. So they hadn't really addressed the core issue.
Exactly. So they'd relapse, truly convinced they could start to drink moderately again. And the cycle would repeat. Brief recovery, inevitable collapse. Absolutely crushing.
Just reinforces that feeling of being completely unable to manage life.
Utterly unmanageable. And this pervasive escalating chaos, internal, external, relational, professional, it almost inevitably led people to what they call a bottom.
Rock bottom. We hear that term a lot. What did it mean in this context?
It wasn't just a bad run of luck. It was described as a moment of total bankruptcy of active alcoholism, a point where everything meaningful in my life was gone.
Just nothing left.
Utter destitution. A complete surrender to the grim reality of their situation. No more pretending.
And this hitting bottom, it was actually necessary.
Crucial, it seems. Almost a prerequisite for genuine change. As the sources put it, few people will sincerely try to practice the AA program unless they have hit bottom.
Why is that?
It seems that it was only in that state of absolute helplessness, often driven by sheer terror and desperation, that a real willingness emerged. A willingness to try anything different, no matter how radical it seemed.
The pain had to finally outweigh the fear of change.
That's a good way to put it, yeah.
Okay, so someone reaches that point, absolute despair, rock bottom. Life is completely, undeniably unmanageable. What happens next? What's that first crack of light in that self-imposed hell?
Well, the very first critical step right out of that absolute bottom was this profound, really radical admission.
Which was
Simply, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable.
powerless. That sounds, well, weak. How is admitting powerlessness the first step toward strength?
It sounds counterintuitive, doesn't it? But think about it. It was the first honest assessment of the situation for them. The stark, undeniable recognition that, for them, one drink is too many, but 20 are not enough.
Okay. It wasn't about blaming circumstances anymore. It was facing the real problem. That baffling compulsion to take the first drink.
Exactly. And admitting they couldn't control that compulsion through their own willpower, it's framed as this moment of real clarity.
Like, okay, this is the reality I'm dealing with.
Right. And realizing, as one text puts it, that being powerless over alcohol is no big deal in itself because it finally opens the door to trying something else, something that might actually work.
So self-will is exhausted, shattered. What then? The texts talk about coming to believe in something else.
Yes. The next step involved coming to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity.
Okay, power greater than ourselves. What did that actually mean for these early folks? Was it strictly religious?
Not necessarily, no. Not in a rigid traditional sense for everyone. For many, it started incredibly simply. Maybe just a desperate cry in the dark, something like, please, God, don't let me die like this.
Just pure desperation reaching out.
Yeah. And sometimes That was followed by a sudden, maybe unexpected feeling, a sense of a presence or hearing an inner voice. It was about recognizing any force, any principle, anything at all that was greater than their own individual, failed willpower.
So it could be God as traditionally understood or something else entirely.
Exactly. The point was surrendering the fight they knew they couldn't win alone. As one phrase goes, letting God have it and keep it for good. The core was being willing to believe that there is a power greater than myself. If they could find that willingness, a way forward started to emerge.
Willingness seems key. And this huge internal shift admitting powerlessness, finding some willingness to believe, was that enough on its own? Or was there something else?
There was something else equally powerful that really cemented this shift. It was the discovery of shared experience, of fellowship.
Ah, finding other people.
Yes. Imagine, after years of isolation, hiding, feeling judged, walking into an early AA meeting, and finding this friendly atmosphere, finding, maybe for the first time ever, people who had thought and felt as I had.
That must have been revolutionary.
Totally. One person describes it as finding the understanding I'd been searching for all my life. Think about that relief. Finally, a place where you weren't just understood, but accepted, warts and all.
Wow, that sense of connection must have been incredibly healing.
Absolutely. This new fellowship provided this crucial sense of we in a life that had been so terrifyingly I, utterly alone. It fostered this deep feeling of security and maybe, most importantly, real tangible hope, seeing others who are getting better.
And within that fellowship, the role of a sponsor seems really important in the literature. Tell us about that.
Yeah, the sponsor was vital. This was a recovered alcoholic, someone who'd already walked the path, who offered what they called a special friendship.
Like a guide.
Exactly. Someone who'd visit you in the hospital, introduce you to others, share their own story. They were invaluable because simply they had been there. They knew from actual experience how to navigate those incredibly scary, confusing early days of sobriety.
Living proof that it was possible.
Yes. And they offered practical guidance, support, and maybe just a steady hand to hold when that internal chaos threatened to overwhelm again. Essential.
Okay, so we have this glimmer of hope.
Mm-hmm.
Admission, a flicker of belief, finding connection. How did they start to build a new foundation, to actually reconstruct a life out of all that wreckage? You mentioned a spiritual toolkit.
That's a good term for it. The journey really began or deepened with this rigorous self-appraisal, a searching and fearless moral inventory.
Sounds intense. Fearless moral inventory.
It was intense and often terrifying at first, sure, but it allowed people to finally confront the real roots of their internal chaos. Not just the drinking, but the underlying stuff. The selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear that had been driving so much of their behavior.
Facing the uncomfortable truths.
Exactly. It sounds terrible, maybe, the idea of laying myself bare like that, but the sources consistently describe it as the first step away from the precipice. It's about radical honesty, clearing out all that internal debris that kept them sick.
And facing it allows you to move past it, presumably.
That's the idea. And it brings relief. One source says, it is easier for me to accept myself if I share my whole life. Honesty is freeing, but it didn't stop just at looking inward.
Right, you need action, too.
Yes, the path to real emotional freedom involved making direct amends to such people wherever possible, going back and cleaning up the wreckage of the past.
Oof, that must have been incredibly difficult, facing people you'd harmed.
Hugely challenging, no doubt, but also transformative. This process of making amends was seen as absolutely key to releasing people from what the texts call the dam of resentment.
The dam of resentment. I like that image.
Yeah, all those grudges, those harms done to them and by them, that kept them emotionally stuck in prison. Once you start dismantling that dam through amends,
then forgiveness can flow.
exactly. Forgiveness of self and forgiveness of others could finally start to happen, leading towards genuine peace and serenity. It's an active shift in your relationship with the past and with other people.
So inventory, amends. What else was in this toolkit?
A major piece was turning the focus outward, carrying the message to other alcoholics who were still suffering. This became an entirely new purpose in life.
So helping others was actually crucial for their own recovery.
Absolutely vital. Not just a nice thing to do, but presented as essential for ongoing sobriety. This act of giving away what has been so freely given, it did something amazing.
What was that?
It transformed their own degraded, painful past into their greatest possession. The very experiences that brought them to their knees, those now became a key to life and happiness for others.
Wow. Talk about redemption, turning suffering into service.
It's a really beautiful, powerful cycle, isn't it? Personal suffering gets transmuted into meaning and connection.
So after going through all this, the chaos, the bottom, the admission, the belief, the inventory, amends, service,
Yeah.
what did life actually look like? What was the outcome?
Fundamentally, it meant a complete changed outlook on life, a total paradigm shift.
How so?
Well, that constant insanity and inner turmoil just disappeared. It was replaced by what they describe as a new dimension of hope, love, and peace. Life went from being a constant battle
Exhausting.
to one where individuals could actually learn to practice acceptance in all circumstances and find genuine peace of mind. It's moving from that fragmented, bewildering existence to one that feels coherent, purposeful, and, dare I say it, often joyful.
From a nightmare to a life they couldn't have imagined. But it wasn't like, okay, I did the steps, I'm cured.
Yeah.
Right. The sources talk about a daily reprieve.
Exactly right. This isn't a one-and-done fix. Sobriety and this newfound peace, they understood it as being contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition, meaning it requires continuous effort. Daily practices like prayer, meditation, continuing to take inventory, staying connected with others, cultivating gratitude, humility, willingness, day by day.
So it's an ongoing process of growth and maintenance.
Yes. And that daily practice leads to this good, healthy realization, as one source calls it, that there are many, many things in life over which you have no personal power. But through the spiritual path, this way of living, you can navigate those things and live a happier now life than maybe ever before.
It's about sustained order emerging from what was once total chaos.
Beautifully put.
What an absolutely extraordinary transformation we've been discussing. From that utter despair, the profound isolation of active alcoholism, to a life that's genuinely characterized by connection, by purpose, by a deep inner peace, doing things, as they say, they never dreamed possible.
It really is a testament to the power of these, on the surface, quite simple principles.
Simple, but clearly not easy to practice.
No, but profoundly effective. And you see, the journey out of that chaos, it's so much more than just putting down the drink. It's about radically overhauling your entire outlook, a fundamental shift in perspective.
And it seems to hinge on accepting helplessness, embracing vulnerability.
Exactly. Seeing those not as weaknesses, but as the very foundation for finding unimaginable strength and real lasting serenity. The solution wasn't in fighting harder against the alcohol. It was in letting go of the fight altogether and embracing a different kind of power.
Okay, so here's something to think about as we wrap up. If the path to freedom from something as powerful as alcoholism requires this radical acceptance of powerlessness, this transformation of the inner world, how might that core lesson about surrender, about finding strength in vulnerability, how might that apply to other areas of chaos or unmanageability we might face in our own lives, even if they have absolutely nothing to do with alcohol?